Alright, so what's up? So we're almost there. I'm on part 9 of my playthrough. I think I'm going to go 10 parts. Hopefully I can get these in before midnight, and hopefully I can stay awake long enough to play a little bit of the new episode, Judgment of Atlantis. So this part I'm just going to focus on the fallen guardians, the 4 guys I was supposed to recruit to take the place of Cerberus. We're given that mission by Hades all the way back in part 1. So each guy, I'm going to show you their location, and then I'm going to show you the gear. They all drop some kind of legendary loot that you could pick up. The first guy is going to be King Agamemnon. I don't know if I'm saying that right. He's going to be down here in the Pit of Deprivation. We were here earlier, I think, with Phoebe. This is where we got Phoebe's wooden toy, Chara. So you're going to take a dive down, and you're going to need the armor of the fallen for these guys. I'm pretty sure they're all behind Tartarus veils. And you probably heard the king's story from the Iliad, or if you've seen the movie Troy. He was the king of Mycenae when his brother's wife Helen was taken to Troy by Paris, resulting in him invading Troy with a reluctant Greek force, which we know is the Trojan War. Alright, that's the legendary armor that we need to get through the Tartarus veils. And I was going to say, he's kind of a weird one because the other 3 are considered more heroes. He's more considered a villain if you read the Iliad, or like I said, he's seen the movie Troy. He's not portrayed very well. He butts heads with Achilles, and he's kind of seen as a tyrant that used his brother's wife sneaking off on him as an excuse to invade Troy.
Finally, Hades has sent me a bow before your true king.
I'll bow. Go to the gates and protect the underworld.
And of course, from the Trojan War, we got the Trojan horse, where we had Odysseus was the one who came up with the plans. If you don't know, the Trojan horse was presented as a gift to the Trojans, but they hid some soldiers inside of the horse, so when they brought it into the gates, they secretly snuck out the bottom at night, and then they opened up the gates and let the rest of the Greeks come in and slaughter the Trojans. That was Odysseus' idea. And then in the Odyssey, the follow-up to the Iliad, where obviously this game gets its name, that documents Odysseus' journey back home to Ithaca to go see his wife Penelope. And if you remember, when we did our first mission for Elpenor, our job was to get the Shroud of Penelope from Ithaca. So there's all the connections to the Odyssey, the Trojan War, and the Iliad. And like I was saying, he was kind of a weird choice. I thought a better option would have been Theseus. He was a Greek hero. He was the guy who went through the labyrinth and killed the Minotaur. He's also got a connection to Hades. When him and his buddy, he tried to help his buddy come down to Hades and steal Persephone from Hades. And what happened was he sat on a rock and got frozen in that spot. And his buddy was sent to Tartarus. He got an even worse punishment, I forget. But eventually he got rescued by Hercules, who convinced Persephone to let him go.
This place needs a king, Agamemnon. Go to the gates and protect the people the way you do best.
Alright, so there you go. We got a clue to Hercules' location. If you read his note, he's just basically saying he's not happy being in Hades. He used to be a king, now he's down here and it sucks. But we do get the cursed bow of Hades, which I actually used. I end up switching from Hades' bow to the cursed bow of Hades. It's got that cool little glow to it, and I don't know if I switched to it. I don't think I switched to it right away, but I eventually do because you get that burning applies to nearby enemies perk. Yeah, so I didn't switch yet because I wanted to level that bow, the new bow, up first before I switched. So here's the second location, the Hall of Manii. We're going to get a Keeper's Insight here too. It's going to be an upgrade to the second wind ability. We're going to need our Armor of the Fallen to get through the Tartarus Veil just like before. And this second warrior, just speaking of the Trojan War, you got to mention Achilles. He was the greatest warrior for the Greek forces. He took down Hector, the greatest warrior from the Trojan forces. And the legend went that he was invulnerable to all attacks on his body, except for his heel, because when he was a kid, his mom dipped him into the river Styx, the same river that Charon rides down, that the people enter in the Hades. And because she was holding him by his heel, that part is his weakness, because it didn't touch any of the water. Then at the end of the war, he takes a shot from Paris, the guy who stole King Agamemnon's wife to Troy. It goes right through the weakness, and then that's why they call it the Achilles tendon. It's from this legend. So I'm going to grab this loot, and I'm going to try to sneak up on him. I'm pretty sure I'm not successful, just like I wasn't with the last guy. So what you do when they see you is just jump into that rush assassination, and then get some damage in, instead of wasting that, because you can only use that ability when they're not looking.
Stand down. Put down your weapons, or die. Achilles, the underworld is in chaos. Serve Hades, and go to the gates. If you want me to be a servant, prove it.
And it's also fascinating how much the ancient Greeks idolized Achilles, especially Alexander the Great, who was taught at a very young age that he was a descendant of Achilles. So that influenced a lot of his decisions. He even slept with a copy of the Iliad underneath his pillow, which had annotations from his tutor Aristotle. If you don't know, Aristotle has a connection to Socrates from the main game too. Socrates taught Plato, and then Plato was Aristotle's teacher, even though later on they end up having some disagreements. Alright, so to talk about the fighting, I've probably said it 5 times already, but if you haven't heard me say it before, my go-to, it's obviously the overpower attack. And then I'm going to hit him with the Ares Madness, which is an enhancement to the battle cry of Ares. And then I'll do the Fury of the Bloodline. And then I have the Second Wind, which I was talking about earlier. That's like my 4 big go-tos for a fight. And then when you run low on adrenaline, you just take a step back, lay down some headshots with the bow, get your adrenaline back, and then you can just start it all over. I usually have no problem using that combination. And of course Achilles is going to be a dick and jump around, so I'm trying to get headshots. So if you can't get that headshot, just go for the body. As long as you get a hit, you can start getting that adrenaline back. Another interesting connection to the Trojans was the name Cassandra. Sometimes spelled with a K, sometimes a C, and we know that's the name of Alexios' sister. She was a character in the Greek mythology. She was a princess of Troy, but she was cursed to make prophecies that no one believed. So she prophesied things like Helen getting taken to Troy by Paris, the Greeks using the Trojan horse, and the destruction of Troy. And from this story, we still have the term Cassandra for somebody who makes a prediction that ends up becoming true, and then that nobody believed.
Achilles, Hades needs you. Go to the gates and guard them with your life.
Alright, so again, I wish we got more dialogue from these characters, but what are you going to do? So we got a new weapon, the Cursed Spear of Achilles, a legendary spear. You pick up the Second Wind enhancement here, Ares' Last Breath. It's going to give you 5% of damage dealt. Is restored his health. Immediately hits received will be automatically parried. Achilles' Spear is going to give you 10% damage per enemy engaged, up to 50%. I don't use spears, but I'll just throw that out there. Anybody interested? So we're going to move on to our next guy. It's going to be Perseus, the Gorgon Slayer. I'll show you here on the map where he's at. It's going to be in the Scorched Lands, right up by the ancient Tenemos. So this is one of the guys. There actually wasn't a veil here, so you could just fight him without the Armor of the Fallen. I just jumped onto that rush assassination.
I'm not here to challenge you, Perseus. I need your help.
My help must be heard.
So we always ask nicely, but of course they want to fight. If you don't know what a Gorgon is what Medusa was, the type of monster. And if you don't know, obviously you should. We fought Medusa in the main game. She was one of the mythical characters we had to fight. to get access to Atlantis and Pythagoras. So Perseus is most known for killing Medusa. He chops off her head and then he puts it in a bag, and then he can kind of use it as a weapon. And then he also was known for flying around on Pegasus. It's in that movie, The Clash of the Titans. Sam something played him. And then on his way back from fighting Medusa, he saves Andromeda from that big monster, the fish sea monster. I think they just called it a kraken in the movie, which I was kind of hoping we would see in Atlantis, because I was thinking Atlantis, the water, we would see a kraken or maybe a hydra. The next guy we fight is Hercules. He was known for killing the hydra as one of his 12 labors. In regards to combat, I was saying earlier I thought he was the hardest. He didn't take that long to beat, but he just seemed to have more abilities. He's jumping up in the air, he's shooting down energy strikes, he turns invisible, and he's got some powerful attacks when he glows red. And speaking of Hercules, he's actually a half-brother Hercules, because Zeus is both their fathers. He came down there and had sex with a mortal woman, making them two demigods. And a connection to another one of our fallen guardians. It was believed by the ancient Greeks that Perseus founded the city of Mycene, where King Agamemnon was the ruler of. And I usually don't do commentaries, and so when I find myself pronouncing words that I have never said before, I can only see them written, and then I can pronounce them perfectly in my head, but the second I have to say them, they just come out all tangled. Sorry for butchering any words that I should know how to say. And if you've been following my playthrough, I'm kind of being forced by gunpoint because YouTube they demonetized me for 2 months because I was just uploading gameplay without any commentary or face cams. So I'm trying to make more of an effort so I can keep my money.
Snap out of it, Perseus! We're allies, and I need your help. Go to the gates and protect this place.
So if you read Perseus' note, just like the king, he's not happy to be down in Hades. He makes a plea to his father Zeus. So we get the cursed Gorgonian. Intoxicate applies to nearby enemies. Legendary sword. Looks cool, but I'll pass for now. Alright, so on to our last guy, Hercules. It's going to be at Tartarus. Here it is on the map. In the Chasm of Torrent. It's going to be in that little circle. I originally thought you had to go underwater because it looked like it was kind of angled that way, but you just make your way over to here, and it's going to be another Vale of Tartarus, so you're going to have the armor of the Fallen for him. Perseus was the only one we didn't need the armor, and then you're going to be able to sneak up on him. I think he was the only one that I was actually able to get a stealth assassination on, and not a rush assassination. So like I said, I was trying to look like it was underwater, but once I hit this wall and then it's pointing down, I realized I had to go down through this entrance here. Alright, so Hercules, he's most famous for the 12 labors. He performed 12 labors over 12 years as retribution for killing his wife, his daughter, and his son. He was driven mad by Zeus's wife Hera, who was jealous that that Zeus cheated on her and had a kid, which he did routinely, but for some reason Hercules got the worst of it. And after he committed the murders, he went to Pythia, the Oracle of Delphi, to try to figure out how he could make up for the murders. And here we go with the stealth assassination.
You're the one who killed Cerberus! Yeah! Been a long time since I had a good fight.
Hercules! I'm not here to fight you! I need you!
I said, fight!
They kind of portray Hercules as a big brute, like Testicles from the main game. And it's kind of funny, he mentioned Cerberus. Hercules' 12th labor was to capture Cerberus and bring him from Hades. And you might recognize some of his labors, because they were the same labors we had to do when we're taking down those legendary animals. He had to slay the main lion, he had to capture the boar, and he had captured the bull. I'm not even going to attempt to say the names because I know I'm going to say it wrong. And if you know from the Hercules movies or the mythology, the first labor was to slay the Nemean lion, and then he famously killed it, and then he cut off the skin, and then he could use it as a cloak that was impenetrable, that kept him safe from any attacks. And the other famous labor that he did was fighting the Hydra. He would cut off a head, and then two would grow in its place. So, just like in the Marvel Comics, the villains, the group Hydra, that's where they get their name. So he came up with a plan with his nephew. They cut off a head, and then they would cauterize the neck, so another head could not grow. But he actually got in trouble by the king, who said he cheated, and he didn't count that one. Because he originally had 10 labors, but he didn't count 2, that being 1, and the other one, I guess he took payment, so he didn't count that one either. And like I was saying earlier with the Kraken, the Hydra would have been a really cool mythical monster to include in this DLC, especially Atlantis, because of the water. Alright, so we got Hercules.
Hercules, rise up and be a hero for Hades, and for all the people in the underworld.
Alright, got the Cursed Mace of Hercules. The engraving, tame beasts do fire damage. We leveled up. Took down the 4 guardians. I got them to replace Cerberus. And all that's left is to check in with Hades. And hopefully we can get the information on how to use the Staff of Hermes that we got from Pythagoras. And then, well, the Cyclopses are pretty cool, upside down. And that'll be next one, part 10. And so then I'll be ready for episode 3, the Judgment of Atlantis. And at midnight I can start to play and then finally find out what the fate of Atlantis will be. Alright, thanks for watching. See you guys later. Bye.